To make you aware, this podcast will contain conversations around mental health and well-being and could include issues of a sensitive nature. This is a podcast from Torfaen Talks CIC.
Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday.
Do you know when you said you're going to do that at the start of a podcast, I'm thinking, yes, go for it. Because
We are 1 year old.
Last year, May the 1st, 2024, is when Torfaen Talks CIC was put out there. For
It
the very
finally
first
launched
time.
after the 4 years of paperwork
Yep.
before it.
Yep, absolutely.
All the policies, making sure everything was done correctly and not being scared to take the jump.
And also to have the time to be able to do it as well. Because
Yeah, we still don't have the
we
time.
still don't have the time
But
for
we make
different
it
reasons.
work. We make it
We
work
do,
because
yeah.
we care about the community. So we do make it work. My goodness, what a year it has been. But to finally, I think we reached a point in March 2024 that we're like, what on earth is holding us back? Why are we not doing this? What's happening? Everything's in place. What shall we do? And we just thought, well, May is Mental Health Awareness
It is, yeah.
Month. So we just thought, let's do it. So
Yeah.
May the 1st became the day that we were going to do it.
But looking back on the last 12 months, with just think of all the podcasts that we've done, with the different people that we've talked to, different events that we've been at as well, from the likes of the Heritage Day in Blaenavon, the one in Cwmbran, the one in the Resource Centre in Blaenavon too. Yeah, the library event, yeah.
Well-being event in the Heritage Centre to the Big Pit.
It's, on paper, it's been exhausting, but in fact, it's been incredible, really.
It has.
has,
I know it's not couth to blow your own trumpet, but I am proud of us.
Oh yeah, I am.
I'm really proud of us, and I'm really proud of how the community's engaged with us. They didn't have to.
No.
And they don't still have to. We're not going anywhere. But it just makes me proud. It really does.
It doesn't. And all the impact of some of the things we do, because I think we've said, let's put it this way, when we're looking at stuff behind the scenes, like strategy and stuff like that, funding bits, we have to look at things from a different...
The boring bits, guys.
The boring bits, yeah. The very boring bits. The fact that we got to put numbers on things and this and that. But the reality is, and I've said this before, if we can help one person, that's all I care about.
Yeah. And we're very lucky that it's been one person, and it's been more than one person.
Well, yeah.
It's been... Patrick's going to hit you with some stats.
I'm a stats man.
Well, there's a lot of singing in this episode.
Yeah, I think mine's worse than yours by a long way.
It's on par.
82 people trained in mental health and well-being.
Yeah, so this is not a full year statistic.
Not a full year,
so
no.
this is 11 months. So this is our latest figures. So 11 months in, and we've trained 82 people in that
people,
time.
Yeah, and also with the volunteer counselling that we deliver, the pay where you can, the affordable counselling. Have a guess of the figure for that. How many minutes do you think we've delivered?
Minutes of voluntary.
Minutes of volunteers delivering counselling across the
Well,
world.
I could probably guess because it takes me time to book these sessions and coordinate our volunteers and assess. But I'd say it's a lot.
4,440. That's a fair few.
It is a fair few. And honestly, I know I'm saying about the work that I do with it, but that is nothing compared to the work our volunteers do. Like volunteer student counsellors, they are the ones putting in the work to help support the community with these low-cost counselling sessions. And yeah, so 4,400
and 40
minutes
of
counselling support
yeah.
for the community. And all we ask eligibility is for you to be in Torfaen and to be over the age of 18. That's incredible. So thank you so much to our volunteers as well. Literally none of this would be possible.
No, it wouldn't be.
If it wasn't for them. It wouldn't. So you send out our thanks to you.
Here's to the next 12 months too.
As a celebratory, when we're going through these statistics, for us, it's just, like you said, it's just support that one person. That is all we set out to aim to do. If it was just one person, we would be proud as punch. And to know that in these 11 months, we've supported through training, group activities, through counselling, through our wellbeing drop-in sessions, 225 people have passed through our way to be helped, and that is incredible numbers for us. As just, we call ourselves a little baby business.
Yeah, absolutely.
But our baby business, anything that comes in to it goes back to the community. It's not about us two, but we are very proud. I know we are, and we're very proud of you as a community with engaging with us. So 225 of you, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that's had faith in us, really.
If we were to talk about the people that we want to thank, I think we would have an episode very long.
We would.
And I promise we wouldn't say thank you with a song either. Because that would
I can't promise that. No, but what I would say, I want you to know when we say thank you, we hope that you know who you are that we're saying thank you to. Your support has been absolutely immeasurable. It really has. And your ongoing support also.
Now, you mentioned a little bit about some of the stuff we've done in the last 12 months. You know, the events that we've been to, the support that we've given. But it kind of started, in one respect, as our wellbeing pop-ups, didn't it?
So it started with thinking, well, if we had monthly pop-up sessions so people could maybe just ask where to go for their mental health and well-being, ask for some advice, maybe not know what organisation to reach out to, that we could just do that. And that's what we've done. And we started doing that at CoStar Fairwater Hub the first Saturday in May of 2024. And that's still ongoing. We're still there the first Saturday of the month between 11 and 1. And they still do all their amazing project there at CoStar and in Fairwater Hub. But that's when you bumped into Sue from Reach.
Yeah, Sue from Reach. This is the thing. This is a bit of a heads up for people, because I have been known to just say, do you fancy having a chat for the podcast? When we're out and about. And honestly, people have said to me now, genuine, if I see you with a microphone, I walk the other way.
He honestly doesn't walk around with a microphone, but I think the reputation has gone before
The reputation
you now.
has gone before me. But yeah, it was so fortunate to catch up with Sue from Reach and discuss what they do briefly.
So REACH stands for Reframing Emotions and Anxiety in Children. And what it is that it's a parents' and carers' place of support.
Yeah.
So my understanding of it, and I'm sure Sue will go on in her interview in a second to say more, but my understanding is they meet once a month, the Torfaen branch, because there is a Cardiff branch, and they meet to have like-minded mums who are wanting that bit of extra support, to have different talks on different themes. And they meet at the Blackbirds in Lantarnham, the pub. We've met with Sue, we've met with Rachel, also who runs Reach. And I think, when we met the two of them together, they are so passionate about what they do and what they deliver, and they just want to support the parent and the child as best they can. So here's your interview with Sue from Reach.
Part of our CoStar pop-up session once a month on a Saturday, Sue from Reach has popped along. Now, we know about Sue a little bit, but Sue, can you tell me a little bit more about what Reach is, what Reach does?
Hello, yes, Patrick. Really nice to be here this morning. Well, REACH stands for Reframing Emotions and Anxiety in Children and Teens. Essentially what we are is a parent peer support group. I think there's a lot of scientific research now that actually says that peer support actually is a very effective method of supporting mental health within the community. We really felt, myself and my colleague Rachel, who've set up the Torfaen branch, we really felt that there was a little bit of a niche where we needed to create a parent support network, a bit like kind of Mumsnet, I suppose, which everyone's probably familiar with by now, but to really support parents who've got children who, for whatever reason, are suffering with anxiety or maybe with emotional regulation due to neurodiversity, that sort of thing. Anyone really who wants to try and promote good mental health within their children and teens, and to encourage them to foster good mental health habits. So we're a group that we're volunteers. We meet once a month, currently at the Blackbirds Inn in Lantarnham, Cumbria. It's you don't have to join as a membership. Anyone can just come along to those meetings at 6:30. We have them. We talk about various things. Sometimes we have set themes that people have asked to discuss in future meetings.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have outside speakers in.
Okay.
But it's all aimed really at looking at things that impact our children and teens. So whether it be anxiety about school, exam stress, problems with sleeping, all those sorts of things that impact them on a day-to-day basis, really, that we try and support from a parental point of view, trying to make them realise that it's not just their family who might be going through those difficulties.
How can people get in touch?
Well, we've got a Facebook page where people can message us on Facebook, or we have an email address which people can contact us on. So that's reach.torfaen reachline@gmail.com, so they can message us through that. And we're hoping to set up in very shortly a website so we can kind of spread the word on a wider basis. And we're on Instagram as well. We're Reach Wales on Instagram.
Lovely. Okay, so what we'll probably do with this, we will catch up with you again, not outside in the cold.
Yeah.
So we'll have more of a deeper conversation, I suppose, about what Reach does and your mission and that sort of values as well.
Yeah, that would be great. And we can maybe give the listeners a bit more detail about some of the speakers we've had, and they can make a view as to whether they think it's something that might be beneficial to them and their families.
Absolutely. Sue, thank you.
You're welcome.
And that was the lovely Sue from Reach. Just amazing support. And I know they've been doing great things of like being at parents' evenings and offering support there, when you're waiting to speak to a teacher and not too sure where to sit and what to do, they're offering to do that. So if you're anyone, a teacher or a school listening, I know that Reach really would love to get involved and hear from you. So please reach out. And if you're a parent or a carer of a young person, their advice and support is really important. So recognise that they are here. They're based in Cwmbran, Llantarnam at the Three Blackbirds.
But from there, another little place we've popped to recently.
A little bit more tranquil.
Much more tranquil.
And much more tranquil, a little bit quieter.
Yeah.
Pancake House. I think so many people just drive past it and don't know what it is.
Yes, they do.
I genuinely, if you've got the time, just pop into Pancake House and find out what's going on there. There's so much going on there. From their award-winning cricket pitch is incredible. And just the outlook, the views, it's beautiful. And that's without just all the projects and events and activities they've got going on. But one of those activities really is in the gardens of Pancake House, as well as being in Pancake House, is the Canddo Project. And Russell runs that, who you interviewed.
If you'd like to be involved in the podcast, please message or voice note on WhatsApp. Our number is 07851 138 610.
I'm in the grounds of Pancake House and we've come to Canddo. I'm talking with Russell from Canddo. Russell, can you explain a little bit about what Canddo are and how it all came about?
Yes, Canddo is primarily set up for well-being and people who feel isolated within the community. Our idea is to get people together. It's a socialised aspect. We're going to use creativity as in DIY, gardening. There's no pressure. We don't want people to think that they have to be here from 9 till 5. We're open Mondays through till Thursday, 10 till 3. And it's kind of a drop-in session. We want people to not stay in their homes, but rather come out and improve their mental health.
We're here now at the Canddo HQ, as it were. So what happens here then?
This is, we have DIY classes here, upskilling people, general safety, maintenance, and learning how to use tools. There's also an accessible garden where you can drive a car to, come out and be involved in growing vegetables. We hope to cook vegetables here, and it'll be a participatory part in making vegetable stews. It's kind of a social space as well. So it's DIY and gardening here.
Basically then about bringing people out from indoors, from being on their own, I suppose, and kind of upskilling them.
Yes, it's certainly an upskilling part. It's some people have approached us that they cannot use, maybe not cannot use, but are afraid to use certain tools. We'd like to alleviate that kind of problem, teach them about safety, how to use tools, and we'll actually be doing practical sessions here.
How often does this take place?
So we run the hub weekly. We're open Monday till Thursday from 10 o'clock till 3 o'clock, but everyone's welcome to come down. Thursdays is primarily a men's sheds, but that's for men within the community to come down and they dictate what we do here. So we're open Monday, Thursday, 10 a.m. till 3 p.m.
Perfect. And people, if they want to get in touch, they can find you across social media, yes?
Yes, we're available through Facebook, and we have our email is canddo.project@outlook.com.
Russell, thank you for talking to me today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So that was the lovely Russell there from the Canddo Project, which is based in Panteg House, which is in Griffithstown. What an amazing project.
Such organisations are operating out of Panteg House. The Canddo Project is, I want to say it's fairly new, but they have a men's shed there. They have all these outdoor little bits. They have planters there.
There is something going on every single day there. And I really love the idea of like the garden library. So if, you know, you haven't got a tool or whatever, they've got those tools there. So honestly, check it out. Just go there, see what it's like. Even if you just want to go for a nice walk and just take in some views of a lovely area, that is the place to be. You'll genuinely just want to be absorbed in what's going on at the Canddo Project. So check it out. But we're going to change gear a little bit now from going from more your well-being, mental well-being, into turning it more to your physical well-being and getting your trainers on.
Talking with Laura from Sport in Mind about how they started, what they do, and maybe how you actually can get involved with some sport.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about this one because I've not heard it yet. So it'd be great to know.
Today I'm joined by Laura Brooks from Sport in Mind. Now, can you tell us about the origins and the mission of Sport in Mind? Now, how did it start and what are you hoping to achieve?
Hello there, and thank you very much for having me. It's really lovely to be here speaking to you. So from the beginning, I suppose, about 13 years ago, Sport in Mind started because our founder, Neil Harris, had a friend that was really struggling with his mental health. He was a school friend and he'd been living abroad and working abroad, and he'd moved back to his hometown of Reading in Berkshire, England, and hadn't really been seeing his friends or engaging in any way. And when Neil found out, he went round to spend a bit of time with his friend, who admitted that he was really struggling with his mental health. So Neil really wanted to support him. And Neil, as someone that was very sporty and active and had used being active to support his own well-being, thought, well, actually, maybe I can help my friend by helping him to kind of move a little bit more. So it was a really slow process of encouraging him to stand outside the front door for a couple of minutes. And then a couple of weeks later, it was walking to the end of the driveway. And then a few weeks after that, it was walking from lamppost to the next lamppost to the next one, encouraging some of their friends to come along. And even then kind of having a little bit of a physical activity timetable so that he was getting out the house and moving just a little bit more. That his friend was able to grow in confidence and was able to then re-engage with traditional mental health services, I suppose, in order to help him on his road to recovery and support himself and empower him a little bit more. And this left Neil thinking, well, actually, you know, if I hadn't been there to support my friend just to make those really simple little small steps, he might not have got kind of the confidence to make that kind of, to reach out. So Neil was thinking, well, for the people of Reading, just, you know, for the people of, you know, of the space that he lived in, he thought, well, what I could do is I could spend a year volunteering just an hour a week and just take football down to a local park and encourage anybody that might be struggling with their mental health problems to come along and just have a bit of a kickabout in a really fun, relaxed, safe, supportive environment. And the focus really not be on kind of your ability or anything like that, or even necessarily talking around mental health, but just a really safe space and build a community. The very first week that Neil went down there, he had one person, and actually a lot of people were like, oh, that's quite disappointing. But for Neil, actually, he said like that, absolutely, it was amazing, because this one guy that came along just to kick a football about was someone that actually used to attend like a five-a-side session on a Saturday on a regular basis. And he, because of his mental health, it meant that he just was too anxious to go along, and actually he was then not seeing his friends, his body would start to change because he wasn't being as active. So the space that Neil created for him was a bit of a lifeline, really, in that he was able to kind of move a little bit more in a space that didn't feel like it had so many barriers in it. And then a few weeks later, like about 6 weeks later, we actually had about 30 guys that would just come down just to have a bit of a kickabout, which is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how incredible like a space like or a community can kind of build and, you know, support each other, build these friendships. And that group were like, oh, this is great, we love kind of kicking a football about, like, but it'd be great to do some more, which is incredible. And they were saying, you know, that they'd like to do a badminton session. So Neil, who was still kind of, you know, just volunteering his time and working you know, elsewhere full time, not in the mental health arena, then bought some badminton rackets from a charity shop, booked a court down a local leisure centre, and that basically became became the second session of Sport in Mind. So yeah, as I say, it's 13 years ago, and we've been growing really organically since then. So working with NHS and finding kind of where the need is, and organising. We're up to about 132 sessions every week now, and covering lots of different activities. So whether it's football or badminton, it's table tennis, yoga, tai chi, walking and running, anything that we can kind of use to engage people that might meet them where they are. All the sessions, they're free, they're delivered by qualified coaches, they're drop-in sessions, so you don't have to book in advance, and there's no referral required either. So we're just trying to take away as many barriers as we possibly can to create a really safe, fun space for people to come together and kind of aid their recovery and empower them.
From small acorns, basically, 13 years with one session with one person to 130 sessions now, it has grown quite majorly, isn't it? You're talking earlier then about physical activity and, you know, how that positively impacts mental health. Why do you think sport is such an effective tool for that kind of thing?
I think it's one of those things. It's almost kind of like a little bit of magic, I think, sport. And I think for us, sport is the vehicle we use. And a lot of people, a lot of other organisations can do other really amazing things with their art groups and their cooking groups and things like that. So for us, specifically sport, I think for our physical health, I think we're much more aware of the benefits of moving more, and that it helps manage, it can help manage weight, it can help build muscle mass and strength and things, especially for kind of old people. But it also reduces the chances of getting things like cancer and high blood pressure, and it actually kind of impacts on dementia and things as well. So I think we're kind of getting a bit more aware of the physical benefits of being active, but the mental health benefits are huge as well. So actually, after physically being active, you've got all of these incredible chemicals rushing around your body, which make you feel really great. But also just the opportunity, I think, to go to like a session, like a badminton session or a table tennis session, and actually maybe learn something and flex that kind of muscle a little bit. That we don't often get a chance, especially as adults, to learn new things. And I think also a chance to improve. So by doing something repetitively, you're probably going to improve it, and that will then increase your self-esteem and your self-worth and your confidence. And all of those things will probably add towards making better decisions and being kind of more aware of yourself and looking after yourself. And being active is great for helping you sleep better as well. So that kind of comes back into the physical benefits. But by sleeping better, you're rested, and therefore, you are likely to kind of maybe be feeling a little bit more positive as well. But there's another huge area, which is your social health. I think, as I said, like things like cooking and art and music can bring kind of people together. And I think that's what sport does, especially like a Sport in Mind session. So you can come along as an individual and probably feel very anxious when you come along for the first time. Doing anything for the first time can be really scary. But once you kind of come into a space that we pride ourselves on making really safe and friendly and welcoming, and then you start to build relationships, you feel like you're around other people that you feel kind of similar to or have the same interests as. You can start to build a community and start to build friendships. And as human beings, it is so important for us. We know that isolation and loneliness is a growing issue. So, by providing this really safe space for people to come together and have a little bit of fun by playing sport is just incredibly important.
It is all about, that kind of community that you've created. So how do you reach and engage those communities through the programs? Have you got any sort of specific success stories in this?
I think for us, that if anybody over 17 experiencing mental health problems is very welcome to come along to those sessions. And as I say, there's no referral required. So all you need to know is that the session exists, what time and what day it is, and they run all year round, so that we can really help with behaviour change. So if you are someone that's struggling, then you are welcome to come to our session. So for us, the most important thing is to get the message out there to to everybody and anyone. So we work really closely with the NHS to engage people, and so people that may be getting a bit more support, who are maybe experiencing severe mental illness, would be maybe supported to come along to the sessions in that way. Carers are also very welcome to come along, but I'll put posters up in, you know, all the supermarkets and libraries, out on social media. Anywhere there's people, there could be people that could benefit from coming along to our sessions, and for us that's the most important thing, that we reach people and we can help, you know, transform the lives of people experiencing mental health problems through sport and physical activity. I think there was one example. So the reason we actually kind of started was we've got 4 sessions in Wales at the moment, but we will be looking to expand very soon. But the reason that we actually got started in Wales about 2 years ago now was because a family living quite local to Abergavenny fundraised for us, actually in memory of Rebecca Davies. So they fundraised about £1,000 for us, which enabled us to then kind of, in her memory, because she was really passionate about sport and the benefits of mental health, to start some sessions. So we've got a session in Abergavenny, which is a yoga and a table tennis session. In Ebervale, we've got a yoga session, and in Newport, we've got a tennis session at the moment. So what I do is I work with local charities and partners to make sure that, you know, everybody that could know about it and could benefit knows about this information, and we've got timetables that we share on a regular basis too.
So talking then about some of the barriers that there are in using sport sometimes as a means to support mental health. Now, how do you think you can actually overcome those barriers in promoting mental health through sport?
The evidence shows that a lot of people experiencing mental health problems tend to kind of, it really does affect their activity levels. I think but a lot of people that may be taking medication, it can mean that it's really difficult to kind of get motivated and kind of get up in the morning and kind of get going. So we do lots of little things to make sure that we can overcome those barriers. And I like to think that we kind of smash through as many barriers as we possibly can. So the timing of the sessions, so generally the sessions are a little bit later on in the day. So it gives people a chance to get up and out. But also, you know, if you've got children and taking them to school, it gives you that time between kind of pick up to maybe attend our sessions as well. At the moment, we're kind of usually focusing them on the daytime, and they'll kind of be finished before it gets too busy out on the roads. And really simple things like making sure that any of the activities that we do are on bus routes, so that anybody that doesn't drive is able to access the sessions by getting kind of bus close by to those sessions as well. And it's also things like making sure that the sessions are free, so that we know that money on cost isn't a barrier for people. And you know, there's lots of kind of issues and things that will be, you know, be really trying for people that are struggling with their mental health. So if we can just remove those things like attending for the first time might be something that makes people feel very, very anxious. So we encourage people to come along with a friend or family member, and they can get involved and give it a go as well, and hopefully benefit from the sessions too and have a little bit of fun. And that's not a problem, you know, coming along with someone that you trust so that you can take those first steps through that door. The fact that the sessions are ongoing, so it's not a kind of a short course, and there's no reason that you need to stop coming to our sessions unless you decided, you know, actually what we'd like to do is, you know, they'd like to do more of it. So a lot of our instructors are people that deliver sessions locally anyway. So for example, Kate is our incredible yoga instructor at Abergavenny, and she runs other sessions. And I suppose, a success story that I didn't mention before would be, we've got people that are coming along to the Abergavenny sessions, and they're moving on to go to the sessions that our instructor is running. So it's kind of helping to improve. It's almost like we've helped kickstart, which is the kind of idea of what we're trying to do. And then when people grow in confidence, they can then reach out to other opportunities in the local area as well.
It kind of does help people, you know, achieve what they want to achieve. You know, it is small steps, really, isn't it? I suppose. Looking ahead, what do you think the key goals are for Sport in Mind, and also how can people get involved with what you do?
The key goals for Sport in Mind, I think we've been growing really organically, I think I mentioned, and we're hoping that we can just keep on growing. The demand is there for sure. We speak to a lot of NHS trusts that are interested in working with of us and the work that we do, which is kind of slightly different, I suppose, to the medical side of treatments. So we're hoping to expand and offer more and more sessions and be a national charity, but we'll be doing it slowly and carefully, and to make sure that we're doing things like place-based approaches, which means that we're working with the local communities to make sure that whatever activity it is that we start up are ones that are of interest to the local community in the right day and time that we do it. So I think for us, yeah, it's really helping. It's the goal is to transform the lives of people experiencing mental health problems through sport and physical activity, but also kind of raise awareness of the impact of being active on your mental health. So whether it's coming along to one of our sessions or whether it's just kind of maybe a deeper understanding of how beneficial it could be, you know, maybe it is that you think a bit more about actually kind of going out for a walk or encouraging a friend to come out with you or encouraging other people to move a little bit more. And what we're doing is also looking to work a little bit more with children and young people, helping them to kind of, rather than, I suppose, supporting people who've got a diagnosis potentially, we're looking at that preventative side of things. So if we can kind of learn from a young age and understand how important it is to move for your physical, mental and social health, then that's what we're going to kind of be aiming to do. So we're going to hopefully be doing more and more, reaching as many people as we possibly can. And I don't think we'll, just keep on growing and expanding, really.
It sounds absolutely incredible, Laura, to be fair. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And sorry, the last thing was how to find out about the session. So Sport in Mind has a website, so you can go on there and we've got timetables and an activity map, or you can join our social media and kind of there's bits of information on there as well. Sorry, I forgot to mention that.
Laura, lovely to talk to you today.
Angie, thank you so much. Take care.
Find us on social media at Torfaen Talks CIC. For more details about what we do, look on our website, torfaentalkscic.org.uk.
And that was the great Laura there talking from Sport in Mind. What a lovely lady. She sounded lovely.
It's, there's some of the stuff they do. It started so small about they had one little game of football. That in turn then went into something else. And now they've got different things happening. Fingers crossed they're going to be coming into Torfaen very soon.
Well, fingers crossed for that. That'd be amazing. Like, this is our anniversary podcast in a way of our first birthday. It is just from that very small thing. That's the idea, and you just start. You've got to start somewhere. And it's always about starting small. So that's how to do it. And I think recognising, really, as much as I was saying about changing gear, and we're going to talk about physical health more than mental health, it's not, is it? The two kind of come hand in hand.
They do, don't they? Yeah.
So well. And that is paramount, really, to John's story, who you're going to be interviewing next, from Incremental Health.
Talking about his journey of him being a young man and probably life and decisions and things he was doing weren't good for him, to making that positive change, to kind of turning his life around, not just for himself, but then for other people too.
I remember speaking with John at the men's health event last summer. We were chatting. You know, he was saying then to me around talking about his mental health, and I'm sure he won't mind me sharing, is to saying that he didn't realise he was in a bad space until he was out of that bad space. Right, yeah. And I think that's so true sometimes. We're sometimes just so much just trying to get through stuff that when we come out the other side, we just go, oh God, yeah, I was going through a tough time. And I think that's what John realised. And I think incrementing, not meaning the pun, incrementing, that physical well-being, look after his mental well-being, has really worked for him. It's excellent, really, that he's reached this position now, that he's able to share his story and to help others, in how they're feeling. So this is John from Incremental Health.
Tell me a little bit more about mentioning that you've never really thought of yourself of having suboptimal mental health. Now, could you share more about what normal felt to you at that time?
I think a lot of people are living now without even realizing it, and it's how you are through your teens and your early 20s. You just think that that's normal in terms of where you are with your mental state, your physical health, and because you've been a certain way for so long, it just feels normal, and you don't realize that you can be different. So it was, thankfully, I haven't got a sort of story where I've been to the depths of despair and had a big light bulb moment, or something bad happened for me to have this realization. It was a really gradual thing over time. in hindsight, then I've looked back and realized how much I changed. But, at the time, it just felt normal to me. It's how I'd always been.
How did you start to recognize that you know, the constant restlessness and overthinking might actually be affecting your life negatively?
Again, I never recognized it at the time. It's only in hindsight that I look back and go, actually, I was in quite a pickle for a number of years. Like I said, from my teens all the way through to my mid-20s, I look back in hindsight and realize that my mental health possibly wasn't optimal. There wasn't a point where I recognized and thought I need to change it. It was only after it had improved that I look back and go, actually, yeah, it was, a certain way for a long time.
What about specific things that finally led to you making a change in early 2018? Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, so the second half of 2017 was a bit of a rough ride. Relationship stuff, the same time as I lost my best friend to an accident in work, and they kind of both happened at the same time. So it kind of spiraled from there. And, the usual stuff, the drinking, the partying and all that, which wasn't because of what had happened. I was living that lifestyle anyway, but I think it kind of made me lean into it more as as an escape, like I think a lot of people experience. And then, I was in the worst physical shape of my life, and it just got to the beginning of 2018 and I thought, well, just enough's enough. So I just focused on my physical health, getting in shape and stuff, because up to that point, like a lot of people, especially, young men in their early 20s, I'd done that whole yo-yo diet thing where get in shape to go on holidays and then fall back into bad habits again for the rest of the year, and kind of done that regularly like a lot of people do. But the beginning of 2018, it was just like this, enough's enough now.
And many people struggle with the idea of changing who they are. What helped to let go of that's just how I am?
Again, it was a hindsight thing. And I know it's kind of a boring answer, but it was once I'd realized that I changed, I could then look back and go, oh, actually, how I thought I was, and I thought that's how I always was going to be, that when I wasn't that person anymore, I realized, well, actually, change is possible. And I didn't force it. It kind of happened naturally. But then that kind of opened my eyes then to, well, if I can do it, accidentally or intentionally, then other people who may think that they're stuck in their ways also got that opportunity to change and grow.
What about some of the early changes that you've made in your health routine, and how quickly did you start to feel a mental shift, as it were?
I had this conversation with a lot of people over the years, and I couldn't pinpoint one thing that made the biggest difference. It's a massive combination of multiple things. It was about 6 months, that first 6 months of 2018, that was the biggest shift for me. And it was just getting on top of my, my diet, nutrition, my sleep. I stopped drinking. I went that whole 6 months without drinking, and I wasn't a heavy drinker in the week and stuff, but just like most people out on the weekends and festivals and stuff. But yeah, that first 6 months of 2018, diet, nutrition, sleep. But a big thing for that as well, during that period, which I think is really important, I was absolutely loving my job at that time, which I think really helped, because although I was 24 at that point, I'd only a year previously started my, quote, dream job, which, we can discuss later. I kind of moved away from that as well now. But at the time, I was learning in a job I absolutely loved, on top of, the nutrition and stuff. I think all that combined all added up to, me making that massive shift, in the second half of 2018.
So nutrition, sleep, and exercise, what would you say was the most transformative lifestyle change for you, and why?
Again, you can't really think which one is the most because it's a combination, but something we possibly discuss, later on in the conversation. Sleep, we all know about sleep, is key, but nutrition, although it's massively talked about and people know the importance of it, I still think it's underestimated. Coming from being an engineer into doing what I do now, I think there's a lot of carryovers because, there's that process, problem solving sort of approach to things. And when you really get into the nitty gritty of nutrition, like micronutrients, vitamins and minerals and stuff, it makes you realize that food isn't just, filling a gap to stop you feeling hungry. Those vitamins and minerals are the building blocks for your body to, work properly. And when you consider that from a mental health aspect, your brain is by weight the most active organ in the body in terms of the nutrients and the energy it uses. But if you're not fueling your body correctly, then how can your brain or any other part of your body work efficiently. If you put the wrong fuel or bad quality fuel in a car, it doesn't work properly. And it's no different to your body, whether that's physical health or mental health. It needs the proper fuel to, run properly. And I think that's a big player in how I made such a big shift, because I just went so consistent with my nutrition. Because as much as I prioritized my sleep routine at that time, I was working 70, 80 hours a week, but I was enjoying it. I was loving it. So even at the time when my sleep was less than optimal, I still made these massive, this massive progress, because I think, yeah, the nutrition played a massive part in that.
So could you walk us through the experience of no longer needing the TV on to fall asleep and what that actually meant to you?
Yeah, like that might sound a bit daft for some people, but it was a huge light bulb moment for me, because, kind of I'm really going into the detail of it, but, why I had that sort of suboptimal mental health for all those years was I was never sad or low, or sort of depressed or anything, but I was incredibly restless. Like my mind was a million mile an hour all the time. And again, it didn't have to be bad things. It's just whatever was present in my life at that time, whether it was something in work, something in a relationship, it could have been I was going fishing on the weekend, like whatever that thing was in my life at the time, I'd just be like obsessively thinking about it, and making up scenarios in my head. And if there was something in work, like, oh, you say this, I'll say that. It was just this constant rumination in my mind all the time. And again, not always negative, but it was just draining me. But then the TV thing, when I tried to go to bed, if I turned the TV off, I'd lie there and my mind would be a million mile an hour. So I found release in, I put something on the TV that didn't make me feel like I wanted to look at it, but I could just listen to it. Be something stupid like Mock the Week, or, something sort of comedic that you didn't need to look at. And I just felt like if I was focusing on listening to something, I could then fall asleep. And what I would do is I'd set like a 30-minute or 60-minute timer on the TV, so it sort of turns off on its own. On those nights where I wouldn't fall asleep before the TV turned off, the TV would go off, and then instantly my mind would be a million mile an hour, and I'd have to put it back on to go to sleep. Like, it was that bad. Looking back now, I kind of made that my identity. So I'd literally talk to people, in work or out and about, or my family about like sleep, and I wear it as an identity. Like, I can't go to sleep without the TV on. And I was just drilling that story into myself. What you think becomes your reality, especially those things that you repeat over and over again. And this is a bit of a silly example, but it just highlights that, a lot of people are in that state where they can't switch off before bed. Their mind is racing before bed. For me, it was the TV. Other people, it might be podcast, white noise, music. But it just really highlights that fact that, that restless mind before sleep it's not helpful.
And I suppose really what you're talking about is AMSR, because for a lot of people, you just mentioned it about podcasting, people listening to music, to the white noise, to, sound effects of spa music, even on the smart speaker. It does help distract your brain from other things, doesn't it?
It does indeed. But, doing what I do now with like my coaching, I understand that from the TV aspect, how detrimental having that bright screen on when you're trying to go to sleep is for your sleep quality. So you might be going to sleep, but the quality of your sleep is massively hampered. So it's almost like a double-edged sword. It's helping you get to sleep, but it's really disrupting your quality of your sleep.
Absolutely, yeah. So what about the newfound calm that you kind of have from that change in your relationships and interactions with other people?
Honestly, like, it's life-changing, and that's not an understatement. And how I come to that realization and the ability to not have to use a TV to go to sleep. It was during lockdown, but I worked all the way through lockdown. I didn't have any time off at all. But because I used to go to the gym before work, but the gyms were shut, I could get up an hour later. So that means I could go to bed an hour later. So that hour later before bed, I started reading again, which was something I've dipped in and out of over the years. But yeah, through lockdown, I started reading really consistently. And I found that I'd be reading in bed. I'd get a few pages in and I couldn't keep my eyes open. So I'd put the book down, I'd roll over and fall asleep. And after a week, I just had this light bulb like, whoa, I've been going to sleep without the TV on. Like, that's completely against everything I believe about myself. And then it was that massive light bulb like, well, hang on, let's lean into this now and let's toy with it. So I kind of started telling myself, I can go to sleep without the TV on. I can go to sleep anyway. I was still consistently reading, but then sometimes I'd purposely not read before I went to sleep and then go to sleep without the TV on. And it was just that massive thing of, well, this story I've been telling myself all these years, it isn't true. I changed massively. And it was reading for me that, set that light bulb off. How that changed me in terms of like my relationship with others and stuff, that kind of come later, the more as I progressed mentally. But yeah, the reading thing and the TV thing was, yeah, it was a big shift for me it was more of it made me aware of how important the stories that you tell yourself are. You know, you keep repeating something to yourself, like, I can't go sleep without TV on, then that becomes a reality.
Absolutely, yeah. So when did you decide to shift from learning for yourself to helping other people with their health and lifestyle?
Again, it was a gradual journey, and it wasn't like one day I was like, right, I'm fed up being an engineer, I'm going to be a coach. There's a lot of roads that led to that decision come in organically. But as a engineer, you know, from 2020 until I quit my job at end of 2023, I was doing an awful lot of driving with work. So I could be, you know, West Wales one day, Swindon the next day, then Mid Wales, Bristol, like all over the place every day. But the beauty of that was, you know, I could spend 4 or 5 hours a day sometimes listening to podcasts. Never really been massive into like music when I was driving, but I just loved podcasts. So I was being paid basically to just learn stuff that I was interested in. And, you know, over those, you know, 3 years, 3.5 years, I just started building this knowledge, and it was out of interest. It wasn't out of the desire to, I'm going to learn this to be a coach. It was just, well, you know, if I'm driving for 4 hours today, might as well learn something I'm interested in. So I started with nutrition, and then, yeah, went into the breath work, the sleep, and just everything about health and lifestyle that I could get my hands on, really. And then how it sort of led to me being a coach is I was learning all this stuff and I was implementing it in my own life and seeing great results myself. Another big part of it is, you know, a lot of my family have suffered the health issues that a lot of families are in modern society, the diabetes, the heart disease, the cancers, you know, the blood pressure, a lot of stuff that a lot of families deal with, if not most families to some degree, you know, in the Western world. You know, my father mainly, you know, and because I still lived with him or still do, I was learning all these things, but then I was seeing them in as a physical representation when I come home. And what I mean by that is, you know, if a lot of people might hear something about health or lifestyle or nutrition, but because they don't see it or feel it, they can almost kind of let it go in one ear and out the other. I was learning these things about cholesterol and diabetes and sugar and fats and nutrition and everything I was learning about, you know, the negative impacts of doing things a certain way, whilst they didn't apply to me at that time, I could see them in somebody I cared about. So it was almost reinforcing what I was learning to be true because I could see it happening in front of me. So although I was learning all these things and implementing it myself, I also realized that you know, there's all this stuff I was learning applied to, you know, some of my closest family members. And I know a lot of people out there have tried to advise their families and stuff on things, and it's just like a brick wall because, you know, if you're a kid that's your parents are brought up, you're still their kid. So when you're trying to advise them on health and stuff, if you're not a doctor, they're almost sort of shut off to it. So I tried an awful lot to try and help. You know, my father, since, you know, best part of 30 years, has struggled with diabetes and blood pressure and all this stuff. So I was really eager to try and pass on what I was learning and help him. But he kind of wasn't really open to it because he's of that generation where, you know, if you're not a doctor, then what do you know? Because I think that generation is still a bit baffled by the fact that you can learn this stuff off like YouTube and podcasts and you haven't got to go to the doctors to find out about it. So that, you know, me learning myself and also wanting to help people close to me, but them not being open to it, all kind of accumulated into me thinking, well, you know, I know all this stuff. I feel responsible helping other people and sharing it. And, you know, if the people I want to help are not open to it, there's thousands, if not millions, of other people out there who are looking for that help. So all the roads kind of led to, you know, I feel wasted not sharing this, and I feel a responsibility to share what I know.
I suppose it's about turning your knowledge into your career. So what about some of the challenges you faced in leaving being an engineer to launch your own business, and what motivated you to keep going at the moment?
Again, that motivation rests on the fact that I feel responsible, knowing that I have information that can help other people, and other people out there are looking for that information, but are perhaps not getting it from, you know, certain avenues they've already gone down. So it is you know, it felt like I was responsible to do that. Some of the challenges, which, you know, obviously you're leaving a very well-paid job to start something from scratch. For a few months, I kind of had the idea of building the one while I was doing the other and transitioning out of it, but I wasn't. I had quite a hard, you know, physical job, so I was coming home, you know, tired and stuff. So I wasn't putting the effort in, you know, to building my coaching while I was working. So I just made a decision, you know, about 14 months ago now to just like, I've just got to go at it full blast. And, you know, what motivated me to do that was, you know, everything in life's a choice. Everything in life's a toss-up. Not making a decision is a decision. And I thought I'd find it more comfortable trying and it not succeeding than always regretting not giving it a go. So that's my motivation really, is I'd regret not trying it more than knowing I tried and it didn't work out. And it's going to work out. I've got no plan B. Like I'm not in that mindset. Like it's going to succeed. But yeah, the regret of not trying is my motivation to keep going.
Now, you're passionate about linking mental and physical health rather than, treating them separate. Can you talk about why this connection is so important?
Health is health. I know we can't compartmentalize them for the ability for us to communicate. We split them into mental and physical, but the body is one magnificent machine. It's not in two separate systems. And, like we discussed from my own journey, how working on the nutrition and the sleep and the routine, that was the catalyst for my mental health improving more than anything else. So it's just a reflection of my personal journey, really, that I focused on the physical side, but yet I accidentally improved the mental side without even thinking I needed to at the time. So it's so intimately intertwined that you can't separate them. We only really separate them for the means of communication.
Tell me about functional breathing. Now, what role does that play in your work with clients, and how has it shaped your approach to wellness?
It's massive. This is something that I specialize in amongst everything else I do. And, we breathe on average 20,000 times a day. And,
Wow.
There is a right or wrong way to do it, which a lot of people aren't really aware of. But the reason why it's so important, especially when you start talking about the mental health side of it, is, our nervous system is the window to our world. So how we act, react, think, feel, in any situation is a reflection of the state our nervous system is in at that time. And the nervous system's always been believed to be automatic, like it's called the autonomic nervous system. But breathing and how we breathe is like the only physical thing that we can control consciously that affects the state of our nervous system. So improving the functionality of your breathing directly affects the state your nervous system's in. And then, it completely changes how you act and react. And where that showed up for me was in that period of time when I was extremely restless and stuff. I was also really reactive. Some people used to call me angry, but I never felt angry, but it just come across that way because, my tone of my voice and stuff. But I was very reactive, I was very frustrated. If something wasn't done right, they'd be shouting and tantrums, just that kind of elevated, like intense, on edge all the time. So then as I calmed down, and the breathing thing come later, much later for me than the nutrition and stuff. I think it was, 2022 maybe when I first come across the breathing stuff. How that shapes my approach to wellness is, yeah, the food and the sleep and everything's great, but if your nervous system is on edge, you don't digest your food properly. If your nervous system is on edge, then you struggle to get to sleep. By improving your breathing and focusing on certain breathing exercises, you can calm your nervous system down. So you can use breathing as a gateway to improve all the other areas of your life. If a lot, and this is why I think my story will resonate with a lot of people, is, there's a lot of people out there who might not put themselves on this label of anxiety or depression, but there's an awful lot of people out there that are very reactive, very stressed, snappy, arguing and all that sort of stuff. And it's a reflection of the nervous system. So improving your breathing function, improving your body's relationship with breathing, purely just being aware of how you breathe can have a massive impact on how you portray the world.
You spoke earlier about your dad and observing generational patterns in the family, and that's kind of influenced how you react. How has this awareness impacted on about how you guide other people?
I've got massive empathy for, my parents and everyone else's, because any person at any time are only acting on the information they have available to them. And one of my biggest sort of messages that's entwined with what I do is generational change. So, I work with a lot of people in their 30s and 40s who are trying to undo all the things that have caused them problems, whether that's their skin health, gut health, mental health, whatever it is. But then part of my mission is we now take control. And I think this is a massive part of it. We're in control, as individuals of our outcomes. I think we've been brought up to look up to this authoritarian world that, help's going to be come down from above, and people just kind of sit and wait to be told, what to do, what to think, how to live, what to eat. But ultimately, every single individual is in control of their outcomes. And a massive part of that for me is if we now bear that responsibility as individuals, and especially as parents. All the things we're struggling with now, the weight, the lack of movement, the, anxiety, depression, all these things, if we can get a handle on them now as a generation, those habits and behaviors that we are learning, we can then, our kids are growing up looking at us, seeing those things as normal. So if we take ownership now as a generation, then our kids can potentially grow up and not have to go through the struggles that we're going through.
How do you help clients break free then from similar patterns and becoming their own person?
I think a big part of that is time. And I think from what I've observed in myself, but also a lot of my friends, I think that, especially as men, I think that age of 24, 25 seems to be where a lot of people start waking up to the fact that they are their own person. But ultimately, I think a massive thing for me on becoming your own person is having your own original thoughts. And what I mean by that is what you consume becomes your reality. So if you're always listening to the news or, around certain people and having certain conversations, that becomes your reality. What you think becomes you. As much as I, enjoy podcasts and a bit of music and stuff like that, I think it's vitally important that for small, at least small periods of your day, you're with your own thoughts. And I know for a lot of people that can be scary because, like I said, I couldn't be with my own thoughts or, in my own head when I was on my journey. But if you're always listening to something or consuming, media or news or whatever it is, you're always living someone else's reality. And you can't break free from that and become your own person until you start sitting with yourself and learning about yourself.
So for people who would feel stuck in their own mental and physical patterns, what advice would you give them to start their journey?
It's going to be different for everyone, but a big thing is do what you enjoy, especially from the physical health side of it. It's called the health and fitness industry, but they're two different things. And unfortunately, a lot of what people consider healthy has just been copy and pasted from the bodybuilding world. You don't have to smash yourself in the gym 6 days a week to be healthy. You don't have to count your calories and, obsessively track your food to be healthy. That's a fitness thing. And if some people want to do that, they want to step on stage and, compete in bodybuilding, that's fine. I think a lot of people who want to just generally get healthier, feel better, they almost feel like because the only way to do it is this fitness-based world, they shy away from doing anything. So it's, find what you enjoy. Going for a walk or kick around in the park with your kids, if that's what you enjoy, that's better than thinking you need to go to the gym 6 days a week and not going because you don't enjoy it.
And finally, do you think there's any small actionable steps or lifestyle changes you could recommend for somebody who's listening to this and feeling overwhelmed by where to start?
Again, it'll be different for everyone, but do start with what you enjoy. There's so many free resources out there, especially with the world we live in now with access to information, YouTube, Instagram and all that stuff. But, you've hit the nail on the head in the question is start small. Obviously, I've mentioned some important things like food and sleep and movement and being present with yourself. And yeah, that's another thing we haven't touched on why I like the breathing stuff is presence. We're all living in yesterday or tomorrow or, later on this afternoon, where I think presence is one of the biggest deficiencies in the world. And that's where not being consumed by media 24/7, being with your breath, that brings presence. And that's where you start to learn about what you enjoy and what you like. But yeah, it's the small steps, I'm a big advocate of whole foods. And, if you're eating 3 processed meals a day, instead of thinking, right, I've got to go from eating really badly all day to eating absolutely perfect all day and every day, it's a massive hurdle. Start with have a healthy breakfast and then give yourself some leeway for lunch and dinner and do that for a week or two. And then maybe have a good breakfast and a good lunch. Do you know what I mean? So you slowly build up to it instead of trying to have these massive changes. Or if you feel like you want to prioritize your sleep first, get your set a consistent wake up time and just get up at that time every day and don't worry about everything else. And maybe after a week or two of doing that, then focus on your pre-bed routine. It's just adding things in. That's why I named my business Incremental Health, because it's those little tiny gains, 1%ers that add up over weeks and months and years, and not just going from 0 to 100 and then feeling like it's overwhelming or it's too much to handle.
John from Incremental Health, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
That was the lovely John there from Incremental Health. My goodness, that's made me think. to be totally honest. What a lovely journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
So powerful.
During the course of doing this podcast, we've talked to different people, different organisations about, number one, their well-being. That's what this podcast is about. But to hear his, dare I say, his journey from where he was to where he is now and what he's doing for the future as well.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. And I think everyone has that story. Everyone has their peaks, their troughs, and what's helped them through it. And everyone is so different as to what has helped them through it. So I love it. I love pull up a chair. I want to hear all about it, you know. But yeah, no, thank you for John for sharing that. Thank you so much. And I hope, you know, it does help someone who's listening. And yeah, if they want to get in touch with John as well, I'm sure he won't mind if you getting in touch, if you want to have a chat with him and talk about improving your physical health is what he works with the most. So yeah.
And on that kind of subject as well, if you want to become part of this podcast, because when we started this a year ago, happy birthday, we had the intention, and we've kept that intention going all the way through. It's about well-being, it's about mental health, but it's also about local voices too, people that you know. And it's about hearing Chris Birch talking about his journey, or even Sue from Bethlehem talking about their grief group.
Yeah.
So this is what this podcast is about, and I'm hoping that you get a sense of the flavour of what we try to do with this podcast.
Yeah.
I say it all the time. It's like the one show.
It's like the one show.
It's a one show, and it's just...
But it's about showcasing the people that's out there in Torfaen, the organisations that have been, gone, come back, had different names, but it's about everyone all working together as a community as a whole. And that sometimes is a community of this podcast, sometimes the community of Torfaen, sometimes the community of Cwmbran, Blaenavon, Pontypool. Sometimes it's making it smaller and it's the community of your street or of your community hall. It's about sharing what's going on in those places and making sure that we reach everyone that needs support with their mental health or their well-being, so they know where to go. One thing is, when you have poor mental health or poor well-being, that thought strand is going to make you believe that you're on your own and no one can help you. And we want to make sure that we are louder than that, to make sure that people are aware there is support out there. It doesn't have to be us. No. It can be absolutely anybody. We are not precious about that you've got to come to us. We will share and make sure you get the right support that's tailored for you. This isn't about us. It's about that person getting the support that they need. And that's what all this is about.
Been like that since that very first day on the 1st of May in 2024. And previous to that, in terms of creating this and what we are now and what the next 12 months, what that looks like, you know. So,
and beyond.
And further. And as we've said also about, you want to get your voice on the podcast, if you have ideas about groups as well.
Yes, absolutely.
We'd love to hear from you, because this is what we're about. We're not precious about nothing.
No.
But we just want to be like, well, hang on. If people say nobody's actually talking, it's not true. People are not listening.
Yeah,
that's what it does come down to. It's not really about people talking. People talk in the community all the time. But who's actually listening? We want to be the listeners. I don't know about you, but I'm in the mood for some cake smashing now anyway for the first birthday. Where's the cake gone?
I think we've reached the point now of the buffet's open. It's now time to get that. Or have we reached the point of the evening when it's the end and just New York is starting to play?
No, don't. No.
That's a DJ's nightmare.
Yeah, thanks for that.
It's all right.
Yes, it's either that or My Way.
Oh, My Way, yeah.
My Way, yeah.
I think for a lot of millennials now, I think it's like, what's the Take That song?
Never Forget.
That one, yeah. I rolled that. Not for me.
I've never actually seen or heard anybody eye roll on a podcast before, but you did really well. That was impressive. That was really impressive.
Thank you. Yeah. So we've reached the end of the podcast now of our birthday episode. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for everyone, as we said, who's been a huge and important part. For example, someone giving us some therapeutic chairs.
Yes.
Not so long ago. That was amazing. From just letting us hire your room or your cupboard. We're more than happy with that as well.
Sharing our posts on the socials across the interweb.
Yeah, the likes, the follows, getting it out there, even if you're not using our service yourself, then just sharing our name to someone that could benefit from our services is incredible. So thank you so much from the bottom of our heart. I know how grateful we are, so thank you.
Diolch yn fawr.
If you'd like to be involved in the podcast, please message or voice note on WhatsApp. Our number is 07851 138 610. This is a podcast from Torfaen Talks CIC.